Intentional, okay.
No.
Unintentional.
Oh, man.
I'm so, sorry, is there something? Yeah, there's a little left tap. That's how I felt. No, they usually like trip over it. People drop our microphone.
You know, folks, let's do this. Have you on to that side of the room, so we're going to come out of this door right here.
Oh, are you sure? We did not do that last time.
Come out of this door.
We can't do that door straight up.
Man, many surprises.
He comes out.
Maybe come back here, dear.
You remember last time when one of our workers been arrested and they still heard about that. That's when we get so I saw him walk in this morning, so I'm out. I don't know if he's supposed to be 10:30, but I'm like, are you there? He said he was lost for some. And then where did they come from?
Downtown, and went over to the hotel, went over to the Capitol. And just kept going down the road, and just Washington, kept going down there, to the left of the MLK. Took another left and decided to run down the on-ramp 5 today right now. You know what I mean?
I know, yeah.
I'm doing the hangover after. Well, 5 minutes. To take how far
Congrats to you, man.
it was south.
Father, all right.
I was going to look at it right
Yeah.
I saw some of the pressures of food.
Big tall. I mean,
What would that have accomplished?
with the mayor. With the mayor. Okay. Those pins. What you call it?
I'm off.
Living,
I'm off tomorrow.
yeah. Okay, but.
Like 24/7 is just.
All right, man.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I see my sister's dog.
Yeah, that's terrible. Plays the music's terrible. Yeah, yeah, you get what you pay for. Which is underground.
I know, they say you get out early. Exactly. It's gonna be a match.
No, the starting point was
No.
No.
Is this his first key?
Look at one like that.
I've heard of Arlen and Medicare. How somebody's
Oh, like
I mean, because I totally, every day, no, I didn't see the budget, you see my editor, no, you can't afford it. How is that?
Yeah, she's covered for so maybe I'll come later.
Well, they should say if you don't like it.
No, I don't think I'm just saying.
Come on through. It's okay. Good morning, everyone. I can say good morning. Y'all can still speak to me.
Good morning, good morning.
I don't think I did anything to any of y'all today. I want to start by thanking the protesters on yesterday who made the decision to protest peacefully. The overwhelming number of protesters, more than 1,000 on yesterday, really conducted themselves in a manner that is fitting with our city's traditions. So I want to acknowledge the protesters who did conduct themselves in a Kingian fashion. I also want to start by just expressing my deep personal gratitude to the women and men of the Atlanta Police Department for the way that they conducted themselves last night. My command team under Chief Turner's leadership and Chief Pat Labatt in the Department of Corrections worked very hard leading up to this decision to create a strategy that allowed people to express themselves in a manner that's consistent with our traditions, but also keeping a police presence that was in a position to act if needed. As I said, more than 1,000 people participated in protest on yesterday, but there was a small splinter group that chose not to demonstrate peacefully. So if you followed yesterday's events, there was a rally in the Atlanta University Center. There was a rally at Underground with more than 100 people, and then as the Underground rally dispersed, there were about 150 people who started making their way to the downtown connector. So what are the facts? Last night, 24 arrests were made. One of them was a felony arrest. Of those individuals, 7 lived in the city of Atlanta. 13 of those individuals did not live in the city of Atlanta, and 3 refused to provide their address. Most of these individuals have been charged with disorderly conduct, have been processed through the Department of Corrections, and have made bond and are scheduled to appear in Judge Sloan's court today. So that's about 23 individuals. I do want to take a moment to just say a word about our downtown connector and these protests. We are not going to tolerate our downtown connector being interfered with. So let me make a message that I hope is unmistakable. If you move towards the downtown connector, you're going to be arrested. And let me tell you why. The man and woman that lost a child was Leslie McSpadden and Michael Brown. They're the person that had their son shot and killed. And what they have asked is that protests be peaceful. So if anybody has a right to frustration and pain and anger, it's the parents of the young man who was killed. And I know a lot of folks are feeling frustration. I'm feeling a great deal of frustration about the result. But I never saw Dr. Martin Luther King take a connector. When Dr. Martin Luther King and Ambassador Andrew Young and Ralph David Abernathy marched in protest, they did it in a highly coordinated fashion. They didn't just go run on a freeway. We all have families. And just think of what would happen if somebody hit their brake and caused a chain event of accidents and people were killed. That's not consistent with what Michael Brown has asked for. And so I want everybody in our city to understand that I fully support protesting, certainly among our young people. Certainly among our young people. In fact, I'm proud of the young people who've been protesting. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't place other people at risk. And don't be mad at the police for preventing you from destroying other folks' property. So last night, out of all of the protesters that participated, we had between 9 and 11 property incidents, including one taxi cab, the occurrence at Meehan's, the occurrence with Wells Fargo, rocks that were thrown at police cars, and other events of that nature. None of our officers were harmed last night, so I'm grateful for that. And we will know by 5 o'clock whether any of the individuals who were arrested were harmed. So overall, I think that last night was handled as well as we could have been handled, as well as it could have been handled without being overly aggressive. Chief Turner and his team's strategy was a strategy that consisted of available force, but with a light touch. And so we made the decision that as long as folks were moving from location to location, that we were going to let them exercise their right to express themselves. And I will conclude my remarks with just a plea as the leader of this city, that as we cover these events, I just ask that you all be sensitive, because the media's coverage and involvement sometimes can lend energy to those folks who want to misbehave. And I know that you've got a job to do, but we're dealing with Michael Brown's memory, and we're also dealing with our city. And so, I saw some of the coverage last night I thought was a bit unfair to the protesters who had behaved well all day, and I thought it was a bit unfair to some of our police officers. So with respect and humility, I just ask that we be a little more sensitive to the overwhelming number of protesters who behaved in a manner that represents our best values. With that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Chief Turner, and then we're going to open ourselves to any questions that you have on this matter. Chief?
I really would just like to add a thank you to the mayor and this administration for the support that we've provided. I will only add that we have to acknowledge our partners, the faith community, our civil rights leaders who partnered with us in advance of this decision to really be able to put the protesters in a place that they understood that we would allow them to demonstrate peacefully. They did a lot of training of young individuals over on the Atlanta University campus, as well as Georgia State and throughout our community. And so I'm thankful to those partnerships. As we move forward with this, we have to have the same partnerships in place and make sure that we're prepared to move effectively to eliminate any challenges that take place in our city. I want to again thank our staff, our command staff, and each one of the men and women who was on the front line, who took the blunt of the assaults, verbal assaults from protesters, and I think they did a great job for our city. That's all my comments. I think the mayor really handled the majority of all of the arrests. We can take any additional questions that you might have at this point.
One of your deputy chiefs told me a few weeks ago that the protesters would not be allowed onto the interstate. If they got on the interstate, they would be arrested. You'd have the prison bus ready. Did you not have enough manpower with support from GSP, or did your commanders make a different call last night, given the situation?
No, we had more than enough resources to deal with that at the time. Coordinating with the Georgia State Patrol was a challenge. Although they were in our command center, they had a separate center going, moving forward at the same time. We made a call, and we had every desire to take any and all of those individuals off the expressway at the time. So coordinating that effort, we really talked about that last night on how we could have done that more effectively, and we'll be prepared in the future.
Well, tell us what happened. What happened? You said you could have done it. Tell us what happened.
Just a coordinated effort.
Get down there.
Oh, hold on, wait a minute. Let me address it. You don't have to dance around it. What happened was 150 people left the underground and moved towards the intersection. There was no amount of police involvement that would have stopped them from moving towards the intersection without having a very public and potentially violent conflict. And so, at least on the APD side, our judgment was to be thoughtful and calm and methodical. And it takes time to move police officers from one part of the city to another. We're not psychic. So we were trying to protect underground, where 1,000 people were. And people were leaving underground in a very peaceful fashion, Morris. And 150 people broke towards the connector. And so when you are conducting this type of operation, you have assets that are strategically placed throughout the city. And so our approach was, rather than having our city look like it was under martial law, it was to have officers who were looking for me to line 200 or 300 officers and block access to the interstate. You're not going to get that from me. What we did on yesterday was to hope for the better part of we tried to speak to the better angels of folks. And so we planned for protests that were going to be largely peaceful, with the capability to ramp up if necessary. Now, folks in other cities can do it how they want to. But I'm not going to have the city of Atlanta look like it's under martial law because young people, primarily from the Atlanta University Center, decided that they wanted to engage in protests.
Just one more point.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute. One thing we can do here. Nobody has to rush, because I'm not going to leave until all of your questions are answered. So go ahead, Morris.
One more point on this. You've been here for many Freakniks, and many of your commanders have. I can recall that in anticipation of Freaknik weekend, GSP were lined up at the different intersections in terms of trying to monitor, making sure nobody, acted out on the, got through the roof of the cars or something on the downtown connector or heading into the downtown connector. So I'm just asking in terms of if they can prep, the law enforcement can prep for Freaknik.
Morris, first of all, most of the folks who were not around. Last Freaknik was in 1999. So they weren't around. Second of all, this is an entirely different event. During Freaknik, 100,000 people were coming to Atlanta. We were dealing with 121. And so I've made a very clear statement about the connector. And regarding GSP, you should go talk to GSP. This is a City of Atlanta press conference. We coordinated with them, and I'm here to talk about the way that our officers conducted themselves. Now, if you want to look at a strategy, I think it was the right strategy. It was a strategy to follow and get involved at the appropriate moments. That was a decision we made, and I think given 23 arrests, no officers injured, 9 property events, that the strategy was the appropriate strategy. We were not going to engage in a manner where we could have had a protest go in the wrong direction. And if you had engaged 150 people who were trying to go somewhere and you were trying to prevent them, unless you have a very significant amount of people involved, you're not going to win that. I went through Occupy Atlanta, Morris. So I've been there. So during Occupy Atlanta, we made the decision that we would have the appropriate amount of strength close, and when we decided that we were going to clear the area, we cleared it. And we cleared it in a manner that respected the rights of the individuals who were arrested. So if you want to talk about GSP's decision, go talk to them. But I'm telling you in detail, which is why I'm not going to put my chief in the position of defending a call that I think was the right call and that I support. The call was or creating images that are inconsistent with who we are. And so it's harder than it looks from where you all sit.
Considerations was the optics of potential confrontation between and the police. What about the optic of those protesters spilling onto the interstate?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say the optics are one of the considerations. It's not the primary. Now, I've sent a message that we're not going to allow that to happen, and we had that situation cleared within 45 minutes. So what do you want? So what do you want? What do you want? Do you want us to have, first of all, we were securing an area with 1,000 people. So the event had gone off in a peaceful fashion. A splinter group, while everybody is exiting, goes for the freeway. We had people in place to protect different parts of the city. Did you want me to send a group of officers to cut them off? We're not going to do that. We removed them, and we did so in a manner that's peaceful. And 23 folks, 24 were arrested. One's a felony, and 23 are going to be released today.
Mayor, what do you know about this splinter group? Are these occupied?
I'll let the chief answer the splinter group.
We do know that some of the individuals that were associated with that initially started with the Occupy Atlanta group. We don't know exactly who all these individuals were. As the report, as you guys reported, they seem to have been really kind of going through the city aimlessly. There didn't appear to be a leader within the group. We had people that were out with the group, and that's what we were getting reported back to our command center. There didn't appear to be a leader. It was just moving. And as you see the various different paths that they took after they exit the expressway, that was evident in the way that they moved through the city. Let me also say about the freeway issue. We had our motor units in advance of that to get out on the expressway prior to them getting there to try to pace the traffic. That's why no one was killed out there. We were very strategic in that, had our motor units out there to stop to pace the traffic before the individual got to the expressway. We did not have to do that. That's the appropriate thing for us to do. So it wasn't that we were totally out, didn't recognize that was taking place. We made the right decision, I believe, at the time with the resources that we had available.
Is
So
that
thank
one
you,
of the
Mr. Mayor.
things you learned from last time, the pacing? Is that one improvement from the last time when a much smaller group went down there?
Yeah, actually, you know, the traffic at the time, it was pacing itself. It was doing 5 o'clock rush hour, so I'll just say that.
Chief, if you wanted to send a message, Chief, why not arrest every single person that stepped foot on the interstate? That would send a message.
Well, absolutely.
Because we have a
Resources.
limited number of officers.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, this is my point. Don't be ridiculous.
Yes.
There were 1,000 people out there. We have 2,000 police officers. And this is my point about tone and fairness. I know you all got a job to do. That's ridiculous.
But there was
No, you don't know what you're talking about.
I do know that
No,
there
you
were
don't.
1,000 people on
No,
the
first of
interstate.
all, there were 1,000 people leaving underground. And so the decision that you have to make is, if 150 people are moving in a direction, do you confront them and create an environment where other people may come and join? And the call we made was that we had paced the interstate and we could arrest the people and keep the interstate flowing. And so it's fair to say that optics were a consideration, but safety was our #1 consideration. The safety of the people who drive on our interstate and the safety of the people who we were arresting.
If this happens,
13 of whom don't even live in the city of Atlanta.
if this happens again, are you saying that police will be lined up before they get onto the intersection? There will be.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that every time we prepare and prepare and prepare. And so we prepare for a variety of eventualities, and we respond on a case-by-case basis. That's what we're going to do. Last night, we had prepared extensively. When the day up to about 9:30 or 10 o'clock had gone very smoothly. When that happened, we had thought about that as well, and we cleared the interstate pretty expeditiously.
You're
Are you all planning on more
saying
protests
you're
tonight? Are you all
Yes.
planning on more activity tonight?
Go ahead, Chief.
Because there are talks already, Mayor and Chief, on that on social media, that they're planning to protest again tonight.
Now, we are, of course, listening and monitoring the same social settings that you guys are, and so we're prepared to for any protests that take place. Again, we want to encourage those individuals to protest peacefully. I said earlier, and Deputy Chief Davis said earlier, that our reaction would be dictated by the protesters. We want people to be able to demonstrate peacefully in our city without damaging to property and life. And we want to encourage that as we move forward with this process.
Is there a change in strategy, Chief, and manpower, hours, that sort of thing?
Our manpowers are what they were yesterday. We've not stood down any resources.
Chief Turner, going back to the splinter group, you mentioned that there was no leader, but were they organized? Did they plan causing the disruption that they did? And also, what were their ages? Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
I have no idea if they planned, but if you think about what happened around the country, appear to have been some level of coordination around stopping freeways throughout our country. As I said, now as it relates to the leaders and who they may be, we've not been able to determine that, and we're not doing this alone. I'll just say it that way.
What does that mean, Chief?
Meaning that we have our state and federal partners that are involved in the intelligence of this throughout the country.
The grand jury's decision, do you think that, you can't really make the that it was their intent to disrupt and to destroy property?
I have no idea, but based on social media, it seems that that's the case. And based on the comments of a few of the folks who were on your air, I saw one woman who talked about that they had shut down the downtown connector in one of the busiest parts of the country. So taking her comments, I would think that that was an effort.
There was a handful of journalists that were arrested last night, many of whom I think argued that they were simply documenting what was happening. Can you talk about the balance between allowing journalists to...
Sure, we would like to encourage journalists to participate and to document what's going on. We have nothing to hide. There were 2 arrests of media individuals that was in the roadway on the expressway that we've made arrest on. We're prepared to dismiss those charges moving forward, but I want the media to understand when we have a situation, when people are in violation of the law, it's our discretion to move forward and move those individuals out of the roadway.
Of those folks who went on the freeway, how many folks were arrested?
We, the city of Atlanta, made 5 arrests on the freeway at that time. I do not have the information on the number of arrests that the State Patrol made at the time.
In the felony charge, do we know what that was, Chief?
That was pointing a pistol at an individual. That was the charge. It was an aggravated assault charge.
For the reporters that were arrested, what did they actually do? Why were they arrested?
They were on the freeway.
And so, but there were only 5 out of the dozens that were on the freeway. What were they doing specifically that others weren't doing?
I'll have to get that to you. We have the narrative of the report that we can release to the media. I don't know what that is.
So should be proud of as being the birthplace of rights movement. You talk about the optics
so important to Atlanta. What is your concern and fear and managing the
It would be disingenuous not to discuss the optics given our have to say. Our optics and the way that we treat each other is mutual. And so, you know, I'm not going to point fingers, but there definitely was reporting that was inflammatory last night, and I thought unbalanced given everything that was occurring today. And in terms of Rodney King, this isn't anything like Rodney King. There were 0 officers injured. We believe that none of the protesters were injured. Last night, the toughest part of the evening was about 4 hours long. The overwhelming majority of the day proceeded in an organized fashion. There were about 1,000 protesters. 13 of these folks were not from the city of Atlanta. And that's why we really wanted to come and have a conversation with you all today, because, you know, there was some energy, not just locally, nationally, but that had a golden quality to it. And a lot of these folks who are protesting are young. They haven't been through this type of experience, and they're becoming new activists. And so I think we all have a role in having this public conversation.
And one of the things that Shipman has talked about with the center is actually
Yes.
using it as a way to let the new generation know, people who were not born during the
No
civil
question
rights
about
movement,
it. Yes.
what it was all about and what those tactics. Is this a
Yeah.
learning experience or
Well,
something along
well, you
that
know what,
line?
Maria? I think when you look at Underground, it was actually done in a manner that was consistent with that, which is why until the Underground event was dispersed, the day had moved in an organized fashion. I mean, whether it was at the Atlanta University Center or at Underground. But definitely when we had cameras on Underground, definitely most of the folks who were leaving the Underground event had a number of younger activists. Derek Bozeman was at Underground, and others, some of the what I would call the new guard in activism. And the program had proceeded peacefully. So we're all learning. But, you know, the message that I want to make clear, I don't want anyone to misread my compassion for us tolerating these attempts to close the freeway. And we're going to do what is necessary to keep our freeways clear. And I just want to really plead with the protesters not to put other people in harm's way. I mean, you don't know who you could kill by causing a chain traffic event. And so I'm really approaching it that way and making it clear today, prior to tonight, what our stance is going to be.
Do you have concerns about staffing going into the holiday tomorrow? Will you have to cancel any vacations?
I have no concerns about staffing. We will do whatever we need to do and provide whatever resources we need to provide to make it a long period of time is.
Went to 12-hour shifts yesterday, just after the verdict was announced. Make sure that people understand that they are safe in our city. We take pride in providing the services to all the
anxiety level. For the rank and file, withstanding all those taunts, what was it like?
Well, I think for the most part, our officers acted professionally. I didn't see a lot of frustration. They were happy to be out there serving the city. I think they did a really good job, and I really didn't feel any frustration in the rank and file.
Going back to the optics, one of the criticisms in August when the protest started in Ferguson was that they had an use of military-style equipment. How did that play into your strategy? Did it play into your strategy?
Well, I mean, it didn't. I mean, the fact is we have a tremendous history in our city as our police department. I think if you think about the different place that we were in during the civil rights movement, I would like to think that our police department is a peaceful entity with protesters. We've continued to try to make that clear. We allowed and we will continue to allow individuals to demonstrate and provide whatever comments that they so choose. We were assaulted with verbal assaults. Our officers were throughout the entire night. So was I. But the fact is we have been very, very diligent in making sure our young officers understand that those assaults will come and they are not to react to those comments. So we have trained our people. I think the majority of our officers continue to do a great job. As someone said, these folk have families that they would like to be for Thanksgiving, but we'll be here to protect our city.
Chief, how many officers did you have last night? How many people were?
All of our officers on the Atlanta Police Department was
you had
available.
2,000 officers were
At different times. You have to understand, we could not allow people to work 24 hours a day, so we rotate people in. Yes,
Did
right.
you see an incident of what happened in Ferguson actually happened in Atlanta, or do you think that we are just a different place?
Yeah, I think your comments the other day were fair.
What happened in Ferguson can happen anywhere, because that's about an individual incident between one man and a teenager. And people in cities all across America have bad judgment. But what would not happen in Atlanta that happened in Ferguson is it be undisclosed. And what would not happen is that that type of crisis would not have been dealt with in an open fashion and people got real answers. And the press been able to have access to the information around the shooting. What happened in Ferguson can happen anywhere in the United States of America. What should be avoided is the awful amount of lack of transparency around that young man's murder and not giving his family concrete answers. And I think you know as well as anyone, there is no way in the world in the city of Atlanta that an 18-year-old young man could be shot more than 10 times and no answers be provided to the parents. So whether it would be me providing the answers or Ambassador Young providing the answers or Reverend Joseph Laurie providing the answers, answers would have been provided because of the way that our city is structured. There are too many women and men who shed their blood and tears, John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, that would have demanded answers, and answers would have been forthcoming. But you wouldn't have had to demand answers from me. I would have gotten the answers. So the direct answer is, what happened to Michael Brown can happen anywhere in the United States of America.
Chief,
but the other part of it really is about what happened after he was killed.
This question for the chief. There was some middle-aged individual who appeared on TV last night. I don't know if he was an observer or a protester, but he claimed that some of these folks got upset because a police officer or officers snatched a flag or something that they were, or a sign they were waving. Was there anything about that? Or
I can't talk to that. I will tell you that.
Elaine, do you know?
We did make an arrest on the individual that carried the sign onto the freeway, and he was in the roadway a second time. And yes, we did take the sign, that sign that said "Shut it down." So that was definitely, we definitely took possession of that sign and made the arrest of the individuals that was carrying that in the roadway.
Oh, in the roadway.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right.
Mayor Reed, on a different subject, yesterday or this week, you suspended Atlanta's fire chief for writings about LGBT people.
Yes.
Georgia Equality, a state LGBT group, has called for the immediate dismissal of this fire chief despite your suspension order. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is everybody's entitled to due process. And I acted the first day that he got back in town. So we discussed the book on Friday. I read the passages on Friday. By 4:30, we had taken decisive action that still affords him due process. So I'm not going to speak to the outcome of his due process. He was suspended for 30 days without pay. He will be subject to a sensitivity training by a sensitivity training organization that is respected in the LGBT community. I replaced him with Chief Baker in terms of his command, and I have prohibited the distribution of the book. And I did that, no, stop. And I did that within the first day that he got back in town and was able to have a conversation with our Human Resources Department. And so I'm not going to prejudge an investigation because everybody, certainly folks in the LGBT community, understand and appreciate that there has to be due process and a process that is in place and respected. But we certainly have acted decisively.
Their argument is that even if there aren't specific incidents where his beliefs have trickled into the department personnel decisions, that his beliefs are now public, and that would create a chilling effect on any employee in the department already, and that's why he needs to be immediately removed.
And their arguments are being heard.
Mayor, there was a call in reaction to Ferguson by some rights leaders here to boycott businesses on Black Friday. Have you heard from them, and do you support that? Are you concerned that might affect some of the businesses in Atlanta?
I have not heard from them, to be honest, and I'm going to let folks in the activist community speak to their decisions around boycotts. I think that as it relates to Michael Brown's death, we can be more constructive and do more to engage in a conversation on how we make sure that within the community and within the law enforcement community that we work to prevent events like Michael Brown's shooting from happening in the future. That's what I'm going to spend my time on. And I expect to have a call to have a conversation about that with the Attorney General sometime in the next 10 days.
Mayor Reed, going back to the fire chief, do you think the 30-day suspension, though, and sensitivity training based on the outcry is enough?
Well, I think I think that it is an appropriate first step because again, whether it's enough or not, I don't know. But I definitely consulted with Councilman Alex Warren, who was supportive of the steps that we took on Monday, and we certainly did not. But I don't believe that the story is over. They're very clear. He deserves a right to due process. And he can have a right.
Mayor Reed, the residents surrounding Federal Field called for a community benefits process